Hello, fellow grapplers. This is Matt with the Grappling Podcast. And in today's episode, Levi and I discuss instructionals. We talk about some of our favorite instructionals, ones that were really impactful to the development of our game or just our ability to understand jiu-jitsu. Also, we talk about other categories like best value, ones that had really solid specific concepts as it relates to things like guard passing, leg locks, and those types of things, as well as what we feel to be very helpful instructionals when it comes to further developing as a grappler. So everyone, if you enjoy this podcast, please share it with a friend. Please like us on social media. It really does help the podcast grow. And with that, we're going to jump into a conversation on instructionals. You know, I should have brought my headphones. I'm regretting it now.
You have your headphones on.
No, these aren't my headphones.
Oh, that's the spare one?
These are the shop headphones.
Oh.
These are the loaner headphones.
Mine's the
I can't even hear you.
What?
Nope, nothing.
Do you have it plugged in?
Yeah.
That seems bizarre.
It's because you have to crank these babies to like level 11. I
can hear myself.
I'm
I'm fine.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable with that, you can do that.
I'm going to try. I'm going to see what happens. Does that mess with yours?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Must have been a different setting.
All right. Hey, folks.
Hello.
Welcome to the Technical Difficulties Podcast.
Oh, so good.
Just kidding. We actually didn't have technical difficulties. So today on the Grappling Podcast, we were going to talk about some instructionals.
That's a good way of putting it.
Some instructional question.
I guess how to so what would you define as instructional? Because you know what's funny, wherever I've typed out that word instructional, it always corrects me to instructions.
You're right.
I think it might be more of a unique term with the jiu-jitsu world. I like instructional. Like I remember talking with Jill about like how you could expand this kind of stuff. Like are there NFL instructionals? Like previous,
There was always those like learn how to jump higher basketball videos. I remember that when I was younger.
The amount of money
in
basketball or football or whatever that like for how many instructionals there are for jiu-jitsu, like hundreds and hundreds. Like, or maybe I'm just on the websites because I'm not into football, but you would think that would be a more popular thing to be like these middle schoolers or high schoolers. Like, I want to be the best in the world. How many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ex-NFL players can't put out like a video instructional of like certain drills to work or exercises?
I don't know. I guess.
I'll be a great quarterback. And all of a sudden, here's an ex-quarterback breaking down.
That would be cool. Yeah, like positional plays. Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh, you want to be a really good tight end? Here's from some tight end.
I'm just saying, like, you think that would make sense to say, I play this position at my sport. I want to be the best at it.
Breaking down their own film too, being like, hey, so here's what I was thinking. Cool. Just like people would do for like play analysis or game analysis and whatnot. That'd be really cool.
I don't know. I would think that would be out there, but I just think there's so much money in the NFL that they probably don't want to waste time on like smaller instructionals, but
if I was making millions of dollars a year throwing and catching a ball, I think I would just focus on the throwing and catching the ball.
Maybe not the athlete, but maybe people who coached or people are really good analysis of the game. Like
it would probably come afterward because you don't want to give everybody up your tricks with that much money on the line.
I was saying though, it's like people who are retired.
Yeah.
Who are like done and saying, well, this can kind of go into jiu-jitsu as well.
They kind of do that with keynote speakers. I have heard, oh my God, I've heard so many professional football players. If I knew a lot of football players' names, I could probably just start rattling them off. But no, what is it? I can't. It's so funny.
Reggie Johnson.
Actually, yeah, Reggie.
I just made that up.
Actually, was Reggie White one of them?
Reggie White was one of them, yeah.
No, I'm trying to think if he was.
He's a Packer.
No, one of the. No, okay, he wasn't one of the keynote speakers I saw. My work, like, there's conventions and they always hire these keynote speakers, and they're either a Navy SEAL or a professional football player.
Sure.
And so I've heard of many football players. I've heard many stories from many football players.
Tons of men can relate to. It's just either of those two things.
Honestly,
either some military hero or a football hero.
My favorite are when the actually established like economists and like thought leaders come on. Those are usually my favorite ones. But like an author who wrote a book with like a really neat idea.
But you're not going to have anyone that's going to understand it. They're going to be like, so a team is like a Navy SEAL team.
No, it was more so like, hey, here's our predictions for the environment, or like what's going to be happening with.
No, but it's not leadership. It's like you gotta sell people on.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't think you can learn leadership from a keynote speaker. I really don't. Yeah. I think leadership is something that's like you can be mentored into. It takes time. You have to reflect. You have to figure out your different styles of leadership. There's probably many different ways to go about it, but living around it is probably the best thing.
Yeah.
You
Having
know,
good examples of it.
because how many keynote speakers walked up and go, you know what turned me into a great leader? I was listening to a keynote speech one day. You know, it's always, I was with my coach. I was with this person who's important to me. I had this amazing moment with someone who's a thought leader. And and they really like helped me through this difficult time. And like, you know,
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wonder you could say that. Well, I guess this is kind of where we can get into our topic of jiu-jitsu, because could you be a great jiu-jitsu player just from saying like how'd you get so good at jiu-jitsu? Well, this one instructional I watched completely changed the way I approach jiu-jitsu. Now, there are probably some good ones that give some good concept ideas.
As a hobbyist, I've had that happen.
Well, I guess we can dive into that. What we got?
Should we just do it?
We might as well. I
All
think
right.
we're all warmed up. We talked for half an hour before. So
Yep.
I think we're fine now.
You know, actually, not recording our banter has been actually probably pretty helpful for our listeners.
I think it's helped a lot. Yeah.
We heard your cries. You're welcome. But okay, so.
No, so let's go back to the definition. Instructional.
Yes, instructional. I would say educational piece of information that's typically consumed visually.
So I would say even before what's popular now, which is video instructionals, which makes sense for jiu-jitsu, I'm looking over at my bookshelf of books.
Yeah, I see you have the same one I do with the purple binding.
Yeah, with the Jiu-Jitsu University.
Saulo Ribeiro, right?
I mean, that's probably widely regarded as probably the most
It's a good book.
popular jiu-jitsu book.
The way it's set up is really neat. I actually learned a lot when I was a beginner wipeout and I started reading that.
There's a super rare Marcelo Garcia instructional book that was all about X-Guard and things like that.
Ooh.
I think I might be completely wrong, but I thought last time I looked on Amazon it was like $600. But I found it around here.
Yeah, should rent it.
It was in the Appleton Public Library.
You should have.
Why
Did
did
you
it say
rent
Appleton?
it?
Yeah, I rented it. I mean, I basically memorized it. But the Appleton Public Library had, for some reason, a super rare Marcelo Garcia book.
That's cool.
It's like
Just run over to the photocopier.
I'm just memorizing it, writing down notes,
holding your
like
phone over your shoulder.
I
as you
did the
read it.
same thing with Eddie Bravo had a really popular book called Mastering the Rubber Guard.
Yeah.
I think Mastering the Twister. and things
I
like
had that book.
Yeah. And I would go to Barnes & Noble and I'd sit it and then I have like my notepad and be like writing down notes, or my flip phone, try to take a photo and things like that. Like, did not want to pay the $19.99 for this amazing content, so I would just like write down notes.
I know that took you years to write, but I really need it on my flip phone.
Well, big things was like his flowcharts in there.
Oh.
I'm like, because we'll talk about later with his stuff, but like I just needed his framework because his mastering the system online is really scattered. So I'm like, oh, here's a flowchart. Cool, I can use the flowchart. But books were a big thing.
Yeah.
And then until.
And you actually have that ancient Japanese book
I don't know
with men
what
in
the heck
business
that
suits. That was funny.
Jiu-jitsu. Yeah, it was something about like.
We'll
leading
review that
assailants.
someday.
I think we should. But then after that, it was like VHS tapes. So like Horian Gracie and Hoist Gracie, I remember had like advanced Gracie Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense.
Ooh.
And I can't remember other ones, but I mean, it was like your classic like 1980s.
Where you learn how to defend against multiple attackers
Yeah.
if you are a black belt
like
in the Gracie
like
Jiu-Jitsu
a video you'd seen at like Family Video or Blockbuster, you know.
That's cool.
Like it'd be like this old like kung fu type video. But then it slowly switched over to like DVDs, as far as like 5-part, 6-part instructionals. I mean obviously at that time everything was like the gi. Like everything was just, you know, like the Saul Hibero or whatever, like buying these big systems. But everything exploded now with online video access. People
YouTube has
downloading
been
video.
nuts for that.
Yeah. I still catch jiu-jitsu people saying like, buy my DVD, even though everything is all.
I would say DVD probably.
What's that?
I would say DVD.
I'm just saying
Buy my VHS. That'd be funny if they started making
VHS. Yeah, that'd be a great marketing tactic.
That'd be very B team.
Imagine that. Yeah, B team would be like, you could only get this with VHS.
Yeah.
And then the people would be like, gosh darn it, like having to.
Or do they do it on Betamax?
Yes.
Yeah, Betamax.
Like, I'm selling this super rare, insightful thing, but this is the only way you get to play it.
There's 10 copies. They're all on Betamax.
I would totally do that. That's amazing.
That'd be funny. And you can buy the B Team Betamax player for.
But yeah, so it was like that. But then now these days everything's on.
Online.
Video is a better way to put it, online. Digitsu was a really popular website Digitsu was like the first mainstream online video instructionals that were for jiu-jitsu. That the highest instructional costs were like $79.
Whoa.
And everyone's like, whoa, $79 to get this? Like, I don't know, man. I'll take the $19 ones or $29 ones. But now with the whole push of BJJ fanatics, it's like, nope. Highest one right now is Gordon's. That are like $349.
Yeah.
For his.
Nobody pays full price on BJJ Fanatics.
Well,
though.
and that's something to get into as well.
If you're listening to this and you pay full price on BJJ Fanatics, just wait a day and they'll send you a 48% coupon.
Well, so they have the coupons, and then on top of that, they have the daily deal stuff. I think there was a Chrome extension I had called Honey that could notify you when something goes on sale.
That's cool.
Like a specific instructional, like Steam always had that with video games. Like you put it on your wait list and like, hey, it's on sale now. But it would notify you when it's on sale. And so daily deals like 50% off. And then by default, every one of their things have at least it's a Bernardo 30 or at bare minimum 30% off. So 50% off and 30% off. Like I get it. It's a marketing strategy for them to make them feel like you're getting a super sweet deal on something.
Essentially taking the Kohl's approach.
Yeah. Everything's 30% off. Like, but it makes sense. I remember someone broke down their business model where they said when instructionals come out right away, they catch the whales first. And the whales are like, I don't care how expensive it is. I just want this.
Yeah, before their competition has it.
And then they have the general public that kind of peels in later. And then they have more the scavengers. And scavengers are like the people who take it when it's only on daily deal and things like that. So I think
that's
there's
me, baby.
Yeah. Well, but that's like kind of like I'm missing out, or like Jill always said, like FOMO. Like you're missing out. Like you put this instructional out right now, and you have this feeling like every one of your competitors is going to watch this tonight.
Someone's going to make one change on and put it on YouTube. And we're good to go. Exactly. You know, here's this other guard that's eerily similar to the one Gordon Ryan was talking 100%. About. You know.
Yeah, I remember people would break down all of those things that everybody was doing in competitions through like YouTube videos, like especially the leg lock system.
Oh, okay.
Was always kind of like, here's what they're doing, or like here's the straight jacket system, and everyone was like, because no one put out anything at that time, like anything past like 2013 or 14, like when Danaher and Gordon and all stuff was coming out, like they didn't really have instructionals. Like Danaher had an old book with Renzo Gracie that was basically written by Danaher, but it was like a Renzo Gracie themed book. But again, no one really knew who Danaher was. He was always like GSP's coach for that kind of stuff.
You know, there's an important thing to touch on too during this evolution of instructionals. Also, just so you know, we're like 12 minutes in. But the prevalence of like online instructionals and whatnot, there was a lot of different sources, not just BJJ Fanatics. There was a lot of different websites, like you were saying as well.
Yep.
Was that the Jiu-Jitsu? Is that the one that got you into online instructionals?
As far as like, it was to me one of the main resources for a variety of instructors. It wasn't like themed.
I did Grapple Arts was the first one.
Grapple Arts, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Kesting. Actually, that's the most instructionals I bought from is Stephen Kesting.
There's that guy that was like the Wolverine.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was Eddie Cummings. No, not Eddie Cummings. Eddie. I got that book. I got the Stephen Kesting's book too.
No, I know what you're talking about.
There's anyways.
But he was kind of the core, but he shared a couple different people, but he was the core of that. That's like
Stephen Kesting.
Stephen Kesting, yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of people on it.
And that's what Rob Bernacki.
Yeah, which actually like would lead us to. He's got some good stuff.
I don't know. Are they? He did the BJJ games with him, instructional.
He's done a couple with them. The modern leg lock formula, when leg locks started coming out and whatnot, and then Rob Bernacki did like a consolidation.
But then now it's like BJ. Well, I guess his BJJ concepts is
He still does both though.
You're right. I was just thinking like that's just his subscription website. I think.
Yeah,
it's just that.
So Grapple Arts, super great website by the way, guys. If you want to go check it out, because everything I've gotten from there is high quality. Mm-hmm. And the guy who runs it, Stephen Kesting, he's a stand-up dude.
Grapple Arts is just instructionals, correct? There's no like subscription thing.
No, I think it's just instructionals. You can actually buy DVDs from them still. You can do DVD web platform. He does it all through his WordPress website.
Makes sense.
So it doesn't have like the same like app presence, at least maybe he does, and I just haven't used it yet. Where like you have integrated players and whatnot the same way, but it's really. It's really well done. Seems like a really down to earth guy. I like supporting businesses that are, seem like cool people are running them, and not saying Bernardo's not cool or anything like that. I don't really know the guy, but Stefan just seems like he puts his money where his mouth is, and when it comes to his values, and I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think Bernardo initially was utilizing that space for bringing high quality jiu-jitsu and bringing the space
Yeah,
for people.
he's done a
to
lot
do
of
it.
great things.
But
It's pretty cool.
it certainly has become an open source now for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying like everybody. I mean everybody. Like
You want an instructional? Good.
There's
It's like Netflix a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We're green lighting everything.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, like that South Park episode.
Kundalini. There's like it's like a whole bunch of variety of martial arts and their kind of stuff too now. But I think they have a business model where when you put your instructional up there, they take 50 and you take 50.
Oh, okay.
That's their model. It's very straightforward. It
That's
kind of
cool.
makes sense to say you film it, we'll host it, we'll put it on our site, but we take 50% of the revenue. Like makes sense. You're getting exposure from everybody there trying to look for things like.
So we should probably jump into like some of our favorite instructionals. You actually had a couple different categories of instructionals.
Mhm.
Mine was a little bit simpler, just
for it.
ones that were really impactful to me personally. Some that are good for when you're starting. Actually, these are all good for when you're starting out because I'm still only a blue belt, so I'm pretty much starting out. But yeah, I've only got a couple to cover. We can maybe go back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So first instructional that I ever had that just like blew my mind.
Yeah.
That I was like, this is so good. So it wasn't my first instructional I ever bought, but it was one that I wished I would have found sooner. And I was so happy when I finally did. And it's the BJJ Formula by Rob Bernanke and Stephen Kesting. That's where Rob Bernanke goes through his principles of alignment and just, he puts an entire series of really like words to the different concepts in jiu-jitsu and helps you have a conversation about that because you're using a shared language. And that may not sound very sexy, but it's actually super cool and really helpful the minute you hear it. You literally watch his videos in this series here, and you will get better at jiu-jitsu just from watching these videos, and even better if you apply it.
How long were you training beforehand before you kind of like stumbled upon
I think
this?
like maybe like 3 or 4 months. And
okay.
I remember
so that's a very loose language you had already with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I had like a little bit, but his big thing too isn't like this is a Kimura, this is an armbar. It's more so like, hey, this is ratchet control. This is like, you know, when you control the end of a lever, it's going to give you like the ability to control essentially the thing the lever's attached to.
Yeah.
You know, he had a bunch of these different types of ideas, and then also, you know, he had talked about base and actually defined what it meant versus just keeping it vaguely about, you know, what the deal is.
I got
alignment, structure.
I got laughed because there was a video
posture.
that Greg Souders had before that was talking about things like that, like more of like physics-based stuff. And someone asked a question like it all sounds good, but I think I'd have a hard time explaining to my members like what invariants are. Like to say that these are all invariants and things like that. Like it sounds more complicated because it's a 3-syllable word. And he said that, but Greg was joking about it. He goes, well, I'll show you an example. How many people here know what the Kiss of the Dragon is? And like a whole bunch of people throw hands like, so people can understand this random name for this move, but it's like because they can relate it to this movement, but like invariance has a harder time landing on people right away. He's like, there are some of these words, like you said, ratchet control and things like that, that I think it's harder for jiu-jitsu people to jump at right away because they're so used to speaking grappling in a different language versus someone who's brand new coming into it. Like it's easy for us to say, here's a Kimura, here's a omoplata, because like
ratchet control.
We
baby.
understand that we understand the mimicked movement of something. Like we can mimic the movement, but the ratchet control and the base and posture that we look with Rob as well. It's like it's how everything works.
Yeah, you need a little bit of context, I think, for that one to be maximally effective.
Yeah.
But if you've been doing jiu-jitsu for like a month, I think that one would really kick in and help you out. And just also, he talks about things like the engagement phase. I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, the question that I asked everybody was, how do you start? Because I remember people would just give me these answers like, you just grab and start going.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem right. It seemed like, I feel like I should have something like where I'm setting something up. I'm like, but I didn't know what to set up.
Yeah.
And what I was really looking for was like understanding how the engagement phase works, and then how that engagement phase then should lead to proper like setup for your next position, whether you're playing guard, passing, or standing, or doing leg locks.
So you're saying BJJ Concepts like gave you a
formula.
Formula was giving you like a framework.
Yes.
Just how this whole game worked.
Yes. And that to me is exactly what I needed at that time. I remember watching it on a plane and I was just like, this is so good. This is exactly what I needed. It's probably the first instructional I actually watched and finished, you know, like, or I actually saw it all the way through, and it's very digestible, very awesome. Can't recommend it enough.
So I had a similar experience. I mean, at the time I kind of understood the jiu-jitsu game a little bit through the Gracie Combatives program. I mean, that was all self-defense, but their manifestation of teaching things was just very classic jiu-jitsu of just techniques. Like, here's the trap and roll escape. Here's the elbow escape. Here's these things. And then I would just get into like the technical details of it. I'm just like, oh yeah, I just put the foot here, put the foot there. Like,
Yeah, how everybody starts
so I
jujitsu.
saw instructionals like that, and I was kind of like finding more details to do the moves. And it was the same thing as you. It was kind of like pathways, or just like it was hard for me to understand why all these things are super effective. And not that I needed it, because at the time when I was working with people, it was just doing techniques against each other, basically. But honestly, I think the instructional that blew my mind in regards to the same concepts was Ryan Hall's early instructionals.
Which one? Do you have one in mind?
Open elbow was really good.
Yeah.
Open elbow was really good. His triangle one was really good.
He had great YouTube videos around that stuff.
He was definitely one of the first people that I can remember coming out to talk about, like, anytime there's an open elbow, here's a shoulder lock, or here's, like, it was more like generalized concepts of goals and aims of what you're trying to do with your jiu-jitsu. Or like, if you're building a game around a triangle, here's the situations you need, here's the mechanics, how they work. It was like beautiful, because everyone before that I had watched, everything was like giving you layouts of how to do the technique. It was just a manifestation. All right, if I put my foot here, put my elbow there, it's going to pop open and I'll move. Versus having something that in a situation of jiu-jitsu, it's so dynamic and so prone to scrambles and movements. It gives you this, like you said, framework to say, if I want shoulder locks, I just have to work open elbows. So anytime there's an open elbow situation, I can get this move. And it works because traditional jiu-jitsu, kind of like I had that kid in here a while ago that was saying that the place they were training was just very slow and, like, I should say methodical, but like, very positional based. I'm in half guard. I'm in side control. I'm in mount. So it's like very organized. So you don't get, especially without the gi on, I think it's even more important because of this kind of scrambled nature we have.
Yeah.
We have to have like I
was having an existential crisis on guard passing just last Friday, because
that's right.
I was like trying to figure this out.
It's like I don't know how to explain it, like some sort of radar thing that, like, it allows you to, some sort of guidance system when everything's going crazy, like on a plane, like an F-16 or something like that. Like, it's something that will keep you aligned as your whole world is going upside down. And I like that a lot better because when I talk and hear about certain submissions, especially with joint locks or leg locks or whatever, that's why I like Greg Sauter's talking about the framework, because it allows you to hit the requirements and finding them no matter what the position you're in. Like, if I want this arm lock, I need to take tension out of it. I need to control the base joint. I have to do all these things. And like you're saying, once you understand how it functions underneath, then you can find it anywhere. Versus a typical instruction like, this is a arm bar from guard, 1, 2, and boom, and like you switch. Like, it made sense. They gave the details, but it was almost like they themselves did not know why this all worked. They were just giving like a manifested solution. So I think that was the first one that pulled me a little bit out of the matrix, where it was just like, oh, someone finally explaining like how and why these things are working. Like, no one could really understand, like, why does the arm lock work? Hey, I don't know, you just lift up through the elbow. It's like,
because you're bending the joint backwards.
Yeah.
It's like, but I think we can do better.
So I think it's a little harder with that. So Ryan Hall was one of the first ones. His instructionals are a little bit dated. It's not like BJJ. What if I freaking out? I can't remember that. Constant. I was gonna say it. Formula is such easy.
Oh, BJJ Formula.
I'm saying it's accessible now.
Yeah,
you can go
get it. You can go buy it right now. Grapple
but like
Arts.
Ryan Hall's a little bit older. He had the one that was just DVDs. I think he stopped doing them for a while because of the pirate nature of it back in the day, like 2010s with torrents and everything.
Oh,
like that.
okay.
So I think he got perturbed by putting out more instructionals. But now he's got like teachable courses.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like more like you purchase the course and go through the class lessons, like kind of similar with like BJJ Fanatics, like a little bit like that. But I think he's putting some newer ones out too. But just a person that just really, again, just like Rob Bernacki, like can actually understand why these things work. And that framework allows adaptability and innovation to keep happening because our human bodies don't change in that sense. These not for a very long amount of time, but it's just you can only twist an elbow so many different ways. So instead of like you say with Rob, like doing a set technique, it's like, no, understand the task you're trying to do. And I don't care if you fucking get it from side control or mount or back control, like you're getting this requirement. So it's easier, but it's easier sometimes to teach people to say, here's a Kimura and here's whatever, but it like locks people in saying, I have to do this move from this position.
Oh yeah, I used to remember on the Kimura be like, my thumbs make all the difference. And actually they do help depending on what you're trying to achieve, but the best way to learn it after I think you like learn it through seeing it and practicing and getting your body moved into that shape. And then you can, from there, you can start to kind of extrapolate these concepts is like where they really start to kick in.
I think a lot of jiu-jitsu experts just kind of like stumbled upon these things working. And then other coaches say, this is what works. And they go, cool, we'll do it.
It's like all of jiu-jitsu has been stumbled upon. But they didn't think about it.
They didn't like bother to say like, why does this work more? Like maybe we find the workings underneath and then we can unlock everything else. It's like it's so sometimes it takes certain minds like Rob's or Ryan's to really dig into it. So I guess for both Matt and I think those kind of concept videos in the beginning will help you really feel less confused when the technique portion of your drilling starts falling off when you start sparring. Like, I can't do this technique that I was doing. It's like, yeah, well, sparring looks a lot different than just doing spare technique, but these kind of things help a lot. Like Matt said, like, how do I start the whole thing? Like, that helps a lot.
Okay, so everyone, the two concepts ones we talked about were BJJ Formula, and that's available on grapplearts.com.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Ryan Hall, and you said Open Elbow was one that was really helpful
good
for you.
He's got a couple different ones on there.
I got another category for us too now. Okay, because we're going to keep moving.
I'm going to pop this up as you talk.
Okay, so jumping to actually more of the opposite approach, an instructional that actually was step-by-step guided, but still improved your game.
Oh, 100%.
Because those still do exist.
Mm-hmm.
For mine, it was Craig Jones' Power Top. I found that to be super helpful. I think they actually rebranded it and call it something else now, the B-team style of passing.
That makes sense, yeah.
But Power Top was really good. I really enjoyed. He's got, first off, it's like 6 45-minute long instructionals. So it's not like super long compared to some of the other ones out there. And the thing is, you'll watch like 15 or 20 minutes of it and be like, wow, I have a lot I can apply today. And then you go back out because he's giving you a system that builds, but you can also kind of take it whatever direction you want.
Would you say his power series?
I haven't seen his Power Ride or Power Bottom, so I'm not sure.
Mr. Marketing himself right there.
Yeah, but no, seriously, Power Top was really good. It talks a lot about how to connect loose and tight passing together. It gives you a quick little taste on like, hey, if you want to loose pass, here's some options. If you want to tight pass, here's how you do a body lock. If you want to do some other type of like stacking passing and whatnot, here's another option for you too. And so he gives a lot of very doable options. But here's the funny thing. They are kind of concept based. Because,
his is all like, he starts with some strong concepts. Like, and that's kind of what's going to lead into that. Everyone on Reddit, anytime there's instructional offerings these days, it's like Power Ride.
Like, I got to see that. So.
Complete, different, like almost separate topics that would be like, hey, Power Ride's on sale today. BJJ Fanatics.
I've been waiting for that to go on sale forever.
Okay.
I've been scavenging that for a long time.
Such a life-changing instructional that would be on a daily deal for $47. Like, that's the deal.
Whoa.
On top of the fact of adding, 50% off or whatever.
That's crazy.
Because the whole reason why everyone loves it is because he kind of changes the formula of like pinning for control versus pinning for points. And you would assume pinning for points meant optimal control. But a lot of his stuff, actually, it's funny, like when I watch it and now align it with some of Rob's stuff of like alignment and things like that, like twisting the spine.
Yeah.
Of how much like you lose power and all these kind of things. So his Power Ride system, without spoiling too much, like it just has ultimate control, but it doesn't really land too well in our very cozy point system when it comes to, grappling tournaments and things like that. He's like, well, you're trading off optimal control for side control where their hips aren't fully controlled. They can spin and move and twist and all these things. But it's a very affordable system.
I think it's gone up in price because I would have bought it by now if it was $40. But
well, I have it, so if you ever want to take a peek,
watch it together.
Yes, as bros do.
We'll watch it together with your licensed copy.
On top of it, though, is that his instructionals are actually very condensed. Yeah,
yes.
Concise is a better word for it. Like 4 volumes.
Would you say it's a concise way to explain it?
That's concise.
I was being cheeky. I was making a dad joke.
I'm not good with the words like you are, Matthew. Was concise or condensed?
I said concise.
But concise is like, I guess it's a lot of information put into one.
Yeah, no wasted words.
No wasted words. But he just explains it on top of, I'll say next with like Gordon Danaher, very good communicator of words that don't overcomplicate what you're trying to do. Like, it's kind of fancy when you work these underlining principles and use some of these bigger words or theories, and you're like, ooh, it seems like such a complex thing. And Craig just speaks as if you were just an everyday working Joe. Like, and it explains it like very well, but doesn't make you feel like stupid for not knowing it.
And he's also not he doesn't like over explain it too in a good way, because there's another thing he does that's really good in his instructionals. This funny, this whole episode is just a shilling instructionals. But he will tell you the general overriding theme of the instructional from what I've seen and what you've told me from the ones you have, where like power top, he's like, the whole idea here is we're going to keep just forcing this guard player down and back and down and back and then back and forth, and you're just going to tire and just kind of annoy the bottom guard player to some extent, and you're looking for an opening. And then there's also the opportunity too that if they are a heavy guard player, you're trying to get them to stand up with you. And so that was an option. They're a better wrestler than you, that's kind of a bad strategy. But if you think you are the better wrestler, that can be a very viable strategy to have this very low risk guard passing game that just antagonizes. One of my favorite passes that's held up is that inside ankle scoop.
Yeah.
The inside ankle scoop, flip them back, move over. You don't always get it. It's not like the type of passing maneuvers that you'll see where you go, you lock this in, then you lock that in. It's much more, you're going to probably do this like 20 times and maybe one time you'll get through. But the nice thing is, like that whole time the bottom player's having to defend you, your weight, your movement, all those types of things.
I can't remember what the theme was for this instructional that you were talking about.
Power ride?
No, our reasoning for this one.
Oh, it was more kind of had more step-by-step stuff, but was still very valuable.
So I'll give mine in the sense that...
Wait, yours wasn't power ride?
No, I was just saying that it's impactful.
Okay,
but you stole it, so... But this actually works very well.
You were going to use power top? You were going to use power top?
No. If you're using this category saying step-by-step process, like I have to give it to Danaher and Gordon.
Oh, yeah, they got some really good stuff.
So the difficulty, though, is the fact that what people kind of criticize them now after they put out a ton of them is the fact that it's like Danaher can talk for 8 volumes at 2 hours apiece, of just tons of content. Like, the guy's an encyclopedia.
If you could download it in your head, you'd be set,
But Lachlan Giles had a very similar one. He had the Half Guard Anthology.
I have that.
It's massive,
deep,
massive one, and for an insanely cheap price. But what I'm going to say about this, though, is that when everybody was starving in the jiu-jitsu world, watching Gordon decimate and seeing Danaher being this mythical creature on the side, especially once the leg lock system came out with Eddie Cummings and all that stuff, like everyone was so hungry, like, how do we learn how to do what you do? It wasn't just like, give me a foot lock or give me a heel hook. It was like, how do we become leg lock?
Was it almost
specialists?
like when people watched UFC in the early days and they're like, give me jujitsu?
Yeah.
And then this was like, give me jujitsu 2.0.
Armbar, triangle.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you
master.
knew a Kimura, armbar, and a triangle, you were in.
Amazing.
Ezekiel choke, maybe.
So, but this is where it blew everyone's mind because Danaher putting out his leg lock instructional was almost like a step-by-step process of like, you start here, you go to here, you advance positions, and you catch these leg locks. And it was like beautiful, systemized as the keyword that was getting thrown around. Gordon stepped on top of that and did something similar, like systemically attacking the half guard and whatever. But I think people just wanted to say, like, I know I want this end goal of, let's say, a Kimura. Like, how do I build a whole game around getting a Kimura or building a whole game around a triangle choke or leg locks? Like, no one could really do that before. Everything was all about, like, again, either techniques or concepts, which is fine. But I think people wanted, like, here are these high percentage tactics and techniques to carve your path to get what you want. Like getting into single leg X and double outside ashi and all this kind of stuff. Like it was technical because Danaher just goes a little deeper. Gordon is like Danaher light. Where it's like he still is
It's pretty concise.
But it's more digestible. Like people joke that you have to watch Danaher at like 1.5 speed. because it's just his nature, what he does. But to me, that's kind of a trade-off with knowledge sometimes. Like, you'll get individuals like that are so in detail with things. I'm not going to say that's like,
Did you have one instruction? Pick one instructional out of
his.
Because remember, we're trying to give actionable instructional advice here.
His leg lock, his
What are the
updated
thoughts?
leg lock one was pretty good. Donaher's one.
Yeah.
That was like game-changing for sure. Triangle one was pretty good too with Donaher. I was trying to think with Gordon. Gordon's the one I always reference was systematically attacking the guard.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
So he had like a 3-part thing and blah, blah, blah. But it was like, but something like the guard is a good example because everyone can show you night and day all these amazing guard passes, right? But his was like a framework of how to get past the guard. No one had that. It was just like throw knee slice, throw Toriando, throw whatever. It's like, and nothing's working versus him giving these actionable steps that say, you get to this point, you work these dilemmas and you'll get to here. And then here's the roadblocks you'll run into that, you want to address if that happens. That's a way better framework than saying, hey, we're going to work 10 guard passes and go. It's like, no one really knew why I'm doing these things. I'm just blasting you with these things, and hopefully one of these things get in the door. The analogy I want to use a lot more that I think is more fitting for jiu-jitsu is like storming a castle. It has to be more framework wise of you're flanking this way so your soldiers can go in this way, blah, blah, blah. Or you're not just trying random things at different times because things aren't working. It has to be more war tactics than just doing random things. And I think a lot of jiu-jitsu players, either they were getting told how they were to use these frameworks and no one really said anything, but I think that's kind of where it blew up with Donaher, where it was systemizing and dilemmas, and it was these are strategies to do jiu-jitsu. It wasn't here's 5 ways to open the guard. Here's 6 different, here's arm bars from 6 different places. Cool, that's interesting, but it wasn't revolutionizing your way of how to get things accomplished. But the problem is just, it's really in detail stuff. So I would say only go for those step-by-step things if you're really trying to focus on developing one part of your game. So if you want to develop leg locks, focusing on a step-by-step works. I would say almost doing the concepts first would be better. My opinion of that would have been different 3 or 4 years ago. But I focus a lot more now. I'm just focusing on if I had a group of here saying here's twisting and torsion and all that kind of stuff, with explaining why these things work or why the core nature of these submissions work. Then you can layer on to say here's manifestations of it. Here's this, and then on top of that, now you're okay, here's ways that we can get into it and to make your partner create openings for you to enter into leg locks and things like that, instead of just forcing the opportunities. So step by step, for sure was them. But when you're saying about Craig's overall arcing theme, I think honestly we joke about this a lot. It's good to have the details there for you, but I think sometimes people just look at you and go, okay, so what should I be focusing on? You want a more easily digestible tactic than just 8 volumes of,
thumb in bicep control, thumb out bicep control.
I know what you're referring to with that. So, but I think when I was, this is no dig at Ethan because Ethan was self-proclaiming this, but he was helping build my computer. He was giving me all these details with RAM and all that stuff. It's worked fantastic because all these things were super important to him. But from someone myself who was I'm not sure how much it actually affects my performance and things like that. It was harder for me to really engage with saying how effective. Can I open Photoshop without it crashing? Yeah. Okay. I'm good. I'm good to go with that.
Yeah. It's the outcome, not the.
It's outcome and then working backwards from it. Mm-hmm. So I think you said with Craig's is giving the overall arching theme and then working backwards from there. In jiu-jitsu, we're looking to submit our opponent. It's how do we submit our opponent?
That'd be your strategy, and then the tactics are your specific movements.
Yeah.
Where you're just hey, you're going to try to tire them out. Or here would be a good one. If you want to get a darce, keep hanging on their neck. And keep hanging on their neck and keep hanging on their neck. And then by, 3-4 minutes in, their neck's going to be kind of tired. Not saying crank their neck, but just keep hanging on, keep hanging. And then when the moment arises to capture your darce, it's going to be way easier to slide your arm in and pull their neck down.
I'm just saying that I think techniques and micro details
Gotta
now
do more darces.
is at the end now. It shouldn't be the front.
I think that's
techniques now are now for people who understand the language of why it works and what you're doing. So you're like, hey, adjust the thumb this way. Okay, cool. Because I can see why adjusting the thumb, what kind of effect it has on the system. Like now it takes out more tension or closer to the base joint or whatever.
Yeah, and you're trying to learn less then too. Think about it. If when the first time you learn our triangle choke, you're just like, whoa, okay, my leg go on this side or that side, versus once you've done it a bunch of times, you can just go, okay, I know that I got to do this and that, and then you can get the little tweak of, hey, turn your body a little bit and turn your knee in.
In the midst of a scramble, you have some sort of triangle situation, then you're like, oh yeah, if I just do this, then it can work. It's not like this is the clear classic.
It's almost like you have like 1 second of memory that you can recall a movement on, where you go, okay, you have 1 second's worth of details. Yeah. And then after you've solidified that 1 second, then you can get another second. And that's why those details later on would help. But in the beginning, it's just like, dude, just get your leg bit on their neck and get one arm in. That's that's step one. And then step two, we'll start going through these other things.
Imagine if I had an AI and ran through these instructionals and then broke it down backwards like that. Like say, give me one word to sum up this instructional.
You can't convey enough information.
Well,
though.
I'm saying if you had like a
sentence, I think would be more.
No, but it'd be funny just say to keep working backwards. Like say, now give me a sentence to sum up this thing.
Okay.
Now give me a paragraph.
That'd be funny.
To like, instead of saying, here's this huge, massive amount of information, like what's the overall arcing theme?
It'd be funny if it shot back, no theme. There's no
it's
theme.
All chaos.
This is nothing. Yeah, this is random, man.
Welcome to a normal class.
Yeah.
So I think those are like I said, Gordon Danaher's, when we go back to the BJ Fanatics thing, they are obviously pricey. The example I always give though is when people say, this costs like $199, and it's like that's just so expensive. I go, well, it's expensive to also fly out to Texas or wherever and to pay for a private with Danaher for an hour.
And you won't even learn a glimpse of this.
And you'll take some information that you may or may not be able to recall for 2 or 3 months from right now versus like 10 or 12 hours of very concise, structured information over years and years.
You're getting 20 years of knowledge for $200. Yeah. I'll make that change all the time.
Organized for you fairly well. And that's like, it's just obscene. And then on top of that, you can get it for daily deal and discount. Like, you're kidding me? $80 for a whole systemized process? Like, that's just obscene to be arguing about that. It's like, I get it. You could say the rates for it, but it's like for the amount of information, or I should say for the amount that I've heard of jiu-jitsu people charging $1,000 for an hour of their time for things like that, because it's like, hey, I've been doing this my whole life and blah, blah. Like, I get it. There's trade-offs with it. That has made me feel more comfortable paying what I do for privates. But not to an obscene amount where it's like,
I get it too. If someone just doesn't want to do privates and they're just like, if they don't need the money and they're really just trying to go, I only want people who are either insanely dedicated.
Yeah.
Then more power to them. I guess only people who are going to show up to $1,000 one-on-one meetings.
Super dedicated with that.
Yeah, super dedicated. I
can see that. Cool.
Okay, so
we kept that roughly in line.
Okay, so then last instructional here, the last category would be, actually, I guess there really isn't a category on this one. It's just more so, I wanted to put two of these together.
Oh boy.
Okay, so in the beginning of the class, the beginning of the of our podcast instructional
class,
was the BJJ formula, right, and how impactful it was because you have these concepts. The next one, because I'm a huge Rob Bernanke shill, is BJJ Games, another DVD that he made. It's also, an online instructional and whatnot, available at GrappleArts.com. But this one is really great because it teaches you how to structure different drills and games within your time that you're training to best develop. And I will tell you, ever since we've started implementing this stuff, my game has increased dramatically. Mm-hmm. And it's just really nice because I feel like you reach a certain point where a lot of the instructional details just aren't that helpful to you. And that's not even... It is true though at some point, right? Like at some point, like you're like, okay, I get the broad brush strokes and like you need the fine details, like you said. But sometimes the best way to find those fine details is by finding the problem that you're running into and then solving it yourself. At least that's how I learn best. And so I've been really digging BJJ Games because it helps you structure your training in a way that makes sense.
Mhm.
And like ever since you've been implementing the BJJ games and whatnot here, and especially with the recent change you did where you did the 5 minutes each,
Yeah.
person gets to choose one
I still
spot.
got to work on that.
Love that. My goodness,
That's still not a.
I feel like I get a week's worth of like development in one class.
Yeah.
It's really nice because I can test something, break it.
I think I might change it to 10 minutes. Sorry, 10 minutes in general, not 5 and 5. Because like it feels that like when you guys do 5 and 5, like you're in the beginning process of like, so what would you like to do? And then like it kind of like runs and down a little bit. You guys get momentum, and it feels like 5 minutes is almost too short to like for each person to go.
We're going to talk about this after the podcast
Yeah.
so I can understand more.
Yeah, we'll talk about more.
But BJJ games, and when you pair BJJ formula with BJJ games, it's a great 1-2 punch on how to learn the concepts and then how to set up your training so you can learn it yourself to be able to develop.
I think that's a really good point to say, like, if you want the most bang for your buck as far as your jiu-jitsu development.
Yeah, if you're only buying 2.
Yeah.
Those 2 are what the ones
That's
I
a good
buy.
way to put it. Yeah, I would say
Do you have any other like non-category but really good instructionals you liked? Give me two.
of non-category ones. I mean, non-category ones was interesting. Like back in the day, I really, really, really enjoyed MG in Action. MG in Action. So it was Marcel Garcia's website. It was built by his black belt chess grandmaster, Josh Waitzkin. It was supposed to like, revolutionize how jiu-jitsu was taught. Like he just would take all his classes and chunk them up, and you get all these insane details again for a subscription price. Or AOJ had the same thing, just all technical details and all this kind of stuff, like just massive amount of information on there. But I say not conventional because subscription websites are kind of not conventional. These are people who have an insane amount of information on their database, and they only charge like $20 a month or $30 a month. Usually I'll recommend that to people, for people like Hodger Gracie or Brandon McCaffrey or whomever. Like, give it a month and really focus and deep dive the material. And if you feel like this isn't something you'd continually want to like be a part of, then just take the month, get the information, write some notes about it, and then just cancel it. But they have all these instructionals and this information on there. But the one unconventional one that I've referenced so many times.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Do you though? Why don't you say it?
I don't know the name, but I remember you told me that it's like the most insane deal that is available, where you have like one flat fee.
Oh, so that one's a good one too, Grappler's Guide. But the hard part was when we're talking about saying like most bang for your buck, as far as I'm starting to go away more and more from like the plethora of options, because like Grappler's Guide is fantastic for its deal for the amount of content you get.
How much is it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, when I got it, it was like a Easter special for like $79 or something like that.
And that's for life?
That's for life. I mean, there's Craig Jones, Mikey Musumeci, like so many people that have videos on there. But it's like the same with Lachlan Giles. It's like, it's just an insane encyclopedia that if there were like a jiu-jitsu library that you were to go to, and like, I'm just going to see some information about single leg X or whatever, you could pop on there and see people's views. But sometimes I argue that though, Matt, because this isn't supposed to be a knack on a lot of people, but I think when it comes to instructionals, there's a mix between your capacity to utilize it at high level competition and also your ability to explain concepts very well. So to me, it's kind of like it does a rough job of like maybe understanding what these techniques are, what they look like. But I think to maximize them, like Mikey Musumeci is a good one. Like he's got tons of information on the Berimbolo and all that stuff. And it's like, he's also a good instructor too. So like you could get more information out of that versus maybe some more generic person showing it. It's like, it's okay, but I think there's something to be said about a better communicator or someone who's used it time and time again in competition. I think sometimes
so which one were you going to say though?
Eddie Bravo's.
Yep, I forget about that.
That is $4.99 a month, but he is so damn unconventional. He's got like 220 some episodes up right now of his mastering the system, or mastering the system. That's what it is. Website, because like his episodes are like an hour and 20 minutes long or 50 minutes long, and it is a random plethora of his thoughts or things going on with his studios, blah blah blah. And I literally mean blah blah blah, like just the most random shit you'll see on there. But then interspliced in there in the table of contents, it's like kung fu move to omoplata. Like he'll throw in random techniques on there to the point where his forum had to start creating a Google, Sheets or Excel sheet to just organize where all of his stuff is going. It isn't like an hour and 20-minute episode all about the omoplata. It's like, just seeing his day at the Comedy Store and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just the most random stuff. But then he'll have like a rough theme of his episode, and it'll be like 3 sections where he'll go into it in more detail, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But it's like so ADHD spliced up. But you have all access to it for $5 a month, which is like a drop in the bucket compared to what some of these other places charge. But like, if you know how to search it and utilize it, you can kind of like go through it and pick out some really, he's got so many random gold nuggets in there, but you have to like really take an episode and look at his table of contents and go like, ooh, he says like the golden rule about something, or like, and then take the time to look at it. So, but it's not like organized in a way, but it's such a random off the chart thing of like getting this top level jiu-jitsu guy's insights and all these various things. Like, it's worth it for the random ramblings of him, because I just appreciate his passionate. I've always said if I had to mimic myself as a jiu-jitsu instructor, it'd be Eddie Bravo, because he's just like, he makes everything such world ending. Or I like last Saturday, how I got worked up with Barambolos and 411s. Like,
I've been still thinking about that.
But it was like, it's so
such good stuff.
He's so passionate about like this like, they're so fucked. Like, your friends in the mafia now, like they're trapped. Like, he's saying these kind of analogies while he's explaining like this is just how screwed they are in these positions. Like, I thought it was just so hilarious, and his passion for it. So it's like, for $5 a month, it's so unconventional, but if you can navigate it, like, please do. Like, it's really great. But like Matt said too, the games are great. That's more like a training formula. I mean, Greg Souders has some great training games for free that he puts on his Instagram. Nothing's organized once again, but it's there. Same with Rob. Like, he's got BJJ games that he's got information out there. So people are putting those things out there. So the best thing is to have something specific, like let's say an instructional. Let's say like even Danaher's leg lock stuff. Now you couple that with doing a game where you start an ashi and then you make your end destination, and just now you have more actionable time to work these things versus randomly throwing in a slap bump going like, how am I get to leg locks from here? But I think that's important though, because when we start talking about matches, you can't start an ashi. You have to start from scratch. So just like you're saying, like, how do I get there? It's like, so I just keep going back to Danaher stuff. It's like, it's good to have that framework, but then it just, all these things are necessary to build competent jiu-jitsu players. You need focus time, you need full matches, you need specific time. Like, it's all necessary for that. I think that's good.
Do you have anything more you wanted to say?
I wanted to say like an hour more of information. It's your job to cut me off. I thought we were supposed to have like a red button or something like that.
We should.
Hey,
I'll do this. I'll just slightly touch your arm.
Matt, I thought, no. I thought we had that was our old machine that had the buttons.
Should I just mute you?
No. I had the soundboard thing where there's like the sound effects.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Like, like whatever,
laugh
like
track.
Yeah, laugh track. All right. I get it.
No, that was all good stuff though. Okay.
Well, it's important, like I said, to sum that up. Like, I know everybody wants, good instructionals. No. Okay. No, this is good, because I think so many people get confused on, like we're saying, of like why and where to get instructionals. But I would say if you're looking for cheap things, just remember that these people put a lot of time and energy into learning this. So feel free to, like guys like Craig, like to pay for it, because I think that just further enhances that people will keep making these things, versus like Ryan Hall saying,
vote with your money.
Hey, I'm just done. I'm not going to do this anymore because everyone's stealing it or whatever. But the same thing too, pick something that whatever you get, I know most of you aren't going to apply this, but please, if you're going to want to save money, pick one thing and give that a focus for a month at your jiu-jitsu school.
At least a month, yeah.
At least a month. Like,
commit to actually watching the whole thing if you're going to buy one.
Digest it, take it in and go, that worked out pretty well. What can I get next?
I'm being hypocritical though. I finished like 3 instructionals in my life.
Well, it's exciting to see the material, to throw it on there. But honestly, once you get past blue belt, it should be a lot more of a micro focus for what you're developing at that point. Otherwise you're going to get not the mace submissions and things like that. So, yeah.
All right.
It's good.
So to sum up some of these things, As far as concepts, we really liked the BJJ formula and Ryan Hall's open elbow. When it comes to ones that were a little more step-by-step, but still had really great concepts, themes, and strategies within them, we liked Power Top by Craig Jones, and we also like John Danaher's Leg Lock Instructional, as well as pretty much anything Gordon Ryan makes as well. He's all of their stuff is really good.
Giancarlo is kind of right out there too now.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff too on YouTube.
He's good too.
And then as far as how to design your training, we got BJJ Games. We've also got like the best deal, probably.
That is an instructional too, right? You say that like it's generic.
Yeah, no,
Not
BJJ Games.
Not the most unique name.
Yeah, I like it. It's simple, it's straightforward. It's what it is.
I was just referring that on
GrappleArts.com. Yep.
Okay.
And then there's kind of the best deal if you also want some entertainment was Eddie Bravo's website for less than $5 a month.
Yep.
Also, I need to shill for one of our friends, Jordan, here at the school.
Hey.
He's actually got some wrestling instructionals he's been
Top level
making.
wrestling.
Yeah, he's got
me being the victim.
Yeah. Actually, what's his website for getting to that? He's got it posted somewhere for cheap.
The
Laster Frontier. Okay.
But he's also got his YouTube channel as well.
YouTube videos are good. He's got some cool ideas too about making. I really like his format of making 20-minute instructionals, and they're cheaper. I think that's brilliant.
It's the same thing with Craig Jones, right? It's like I think everyone's like, we can't take this much information. It's more actionable.
Yeah, I need to solve this one problem. Give me the one problem. So Jordan's got a lot of great stuff there. So Jordan, if you're listening, we're shilling for you. Yeah, wrestling for jiu-jitsu. He's got a lot of great stuff too about like how to not hit your knee and still get a takedown, things like that.
Singles and
snatch singles, stuff like that. And he's the wrestling coach here at Theory Jiu-Jitsu. Anyways, Levi, where can people find us?
Well, there was what's his name? Josh Hinger from JujitsuX.com. Like he's with the Canadian JujitsuX.com is kind of a similar thing, but they kind of have some of their own instructionals. I haven't really looked at too much, but Josh Hinger had an instructional that was like singles over 40. Where it's like how to
That's a great name.
Single legs for older competitors. I'm like, that was really funny. I say that.
Awesome.
The GrapplingPodcast.com. And I'm not sure the organization of our episodes, but our next podcast should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, if everything goes as planned, we have a very special guest planned.
Yes, we have a very special guest, so we're excited to have them on. And
make sure to follow us, by the way, on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, we're on Podbeam, we're on Apple Podcast.
Yeah, we were having some technical issues when it came to social media, that it was like some sort of password thing that was locked out. So that was for a while, but recently we got back into it. So look for more posts on there for our episodes, and especially our next one if everything goes to plan. Cool.
If you like this episode, please make sure to share it with a friend. We don't run any ads or anything like that right now. So the only way that we share this podcast grows is if you share it. So,
and if you have a favorite instructional too, you can leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
Right? We have comments.
You're the social media manager.
Hey, leave it in our comments. It'll be good.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Peace out.